Park Yuna walked through the long white corridors of the Galactic Integration Academy. Her boots made soft sounds on the smooth floor. Through the tall windows, she could see the dark sky filled with distant stars and the pale moon that the station circled around. Students of many species passed her in the hallway. Some had scales, some had fur, some had too many eyes or too many arms. All of them moved away from her when she came close. They did not run. They did not scream. They simply stepped aside and watched her with careful eyes. Yuna was used to this by now. Humans had joined the Galactic Union only 15 years ago. To most aliens, humans were still strange and unknown. The textbooks called them persistence predators because their ancestors had chased animals for days without stopping until the animals fell from exhaustion. Most aliens found this information deeply disturbing. Yuna did not look dangerous. She was 28 years old, with a kind face and dark hair tied back in a simple style. She wore the blue uniform of an academy instructor, but she knew that to these alien eyes, she was something unpredictable. Something that did not fit into their understanding of the universe. She reached a large door made of something like metal, but not quite. It opened with a soft hiss, and she stepped into the office of High Overseer Morith. Morith was a Villani. Her body was like a tall insect standing upright, with a hard shell that shone like dark glass. She had 4 thin arms and a face with many small eyes that moved independently. When she spoke, her voice clicked and hummed in strange patterns that Yuna's translator turned into words. "Instructor Park, thank you for coming." Yuna gave a small bow. "You said it was urgent, Overseer." Morith gestured with 2 of her arms toward a chair designed for human bodies. Yuna sat down and waited. "This academy exists for one purpose," Morith began. "We bring together the children of different species. We teach them to live alongside each other before they grow old enough to inherit their parents' fears and hatreds. In most cases, we succeed. In most cases," Yuna repeated. Morith's many eyes blinked in a wave pattern. "There is one species that has never successfully integrated here. The Kethrani." The Yuna felt her stomach tighten. She knew about the Kethrani. Everyone did. They were apex predators, hunters. Their bodies stood over 2 meters tall, covered in thick scales that could turn aside blades. They had claws that could cut through metal and eyes that glowed when they felt strong emotions. But their most famous feature was their growl. The Kethrani growl was not just a sound. It was a weapon built by millions of years of evolution. It hit something deep in the brain of almost every known species. It triggered pure terror. Scientists said that 97% of sentient beings could not resist the effect. They would freeze, run, or collapse when they heard it. "We have a Kethrani student," Morith said. "A young cub named Vrek. He is the first of his kind to ever attend this academy. Why now? His father is Torvak, a decorated warrior who believes his son must learn diplomacy to serve their species in the future. He pushed very hard for this opportunity." Morith paused. End quote. End quote. "But there is a problem. The growl. Yes. Young Vrek cannot fully control his threat response. When he feels scared or startled, he growls. It is automatic for his kind. And every time he does this, every student and instructor in the area becomes paralyzed with fear. We have had 3 classroom evacuations in 3 weeks. 2 instructors have requested transfers. 1 student required medical attention for extreme stress." Yuna leaned forward. "What do you want me to do?" Morith's eyes all focused on Yuna at once. It was an intense feeling, like being watched by many creatures at the same time. Humans are the only species whose response to the Kethrani growl has not been properly documented. You are new to the galactic community. We do not have enough data. You want to test me? I want you to observe. Enter the multi-species social development classroom tomorrow. Watch young Vrek. See how you respond. If he triggers, then report back to me." Yuna thought about this for a long moment. Then we will have our data, and we will continue searching for a solution. Morith stood, her thin legs clicking against the floor. But I have read about your species, Instructor Park. I have a theory that I would like to test. Yuna left the overseer's office with many thoughts spinning in her mind. She walked through the academy until she reached the large cafeteria where students ate their meals. The room was filled with noise and movement. Hundreds of young aliens sat at tables designed for their different body types. Some ate with hands. Some used tentacles. Some absorbed nutrients through their skin. In the far corner, she saw him. Vrek sat alone at a massive table built for Kethrani bodies. He was small for his species. His scales were a dull gray color, instead of the bright patterns she had seen in pictures. His shoulders were hunched, and his claws were pressed flat against the table surface. He was just a child. A scared, lonely child that everyone was afraid of. As Yuna watched, Vrek lifted his head. Their eyes met across the crowded room. She raised her hand and gave a small wave. Nothing threatening. Just a simple hello. Vrek looked away quickly. But in that brief moment, Yuna had seen something that made her chest hurt. She had seen hope. And she had seen it die in the same second. His claws were trembling. Yuna made her decision then. Tomorrow, she would not just observe. She would find a way to help this child. She did not know how yet. But she knew that she could not watch him suffer alone. She was human. And humans did not give up easily. The classroom was large and round. Soft light came from the ceiling, changing color slightly to match the comfort needs of different species. 12 young aliens sat in special chairs designed for their bodies. Some chairs were like nests. Some were filled with water. Some hung from the ceiling. In the far corner, separated from everyone else by 5 empty seats, sat Vrek. Yuna stood near the door and watched. She had arrived early and positioned herself where she could see the whole room. The instructor was a Quarian named Bellix. He had 4 arms and skin that changed color with his emotions. Right now, his skin was pale blue, nervous. Bellix taught the lesson without ever looking at Vrek. He moved around the room, helping students, answering questions. But he always kept the maximum distance from the Kethrani cub. Yuna noticed that Vrek watched everything but said nothing. His eyes followed the other children playing and learning together. His claws stayed pressed against his desk. "Today we practice sharing," Bellix announced. His voice was steady, but his skin flickered to a lighter shade. "Take the learning spheres and pass them to your neighbors. This teaches us cooperation." The students began passing small, glowing balls to each other. They laughed and talked. Some species had trouble holding the spheres, so others helped them. It was a simple exercise designed to build trust. One small student sat closer to Vrek than the others. She was a Fenari. Her species looked a bit like earth rabbits, but walked upright. She had large, dark eyes and long ears that twitched when she was nervous. Her name was Tila. Tila was not paying attention. She threw her learning sphere too hard, and it rolled across the floor. It came to a stop right next to Vrek's foot. Time seemed to slow down. Tila moved toward the sphere without thinking. It was automatic. She wanted her toy back. She did not realize how close she was getting to Vrek until she was already reaching for it. Vrek saw the sphere. He also reached for it. He wanted to help. He wanted to give it back to her. For one moment, he forgot to be careful. Their hands came close together. Very close, almost touching. Tila looked up and saw Vrek's face right in front of her. Her eyes went wide with sudden fear. Vrek felt her fear. He smelled it in the air, and his body reacted before his mind could stop it. His spines rose along his back. His eyes began to glow with soft orange light. His scales lifted and spread, making him look bigger. These were all automatic responses. He could not control them any more than a human could control blushing. Then came the growl. It started deep in his chest. The sound was low at first. Then it grew. It was not loud in the way a shout is loud. It was loud in a different way. It pressed against the brain. It reached into the oldest, deepest parts of the mind, where fear lived. The effect was immediate. Tila collapsed on the floor, her small body shaking. Other students cried out. A Morvani child fell from his hanging chair. A young Quarian's skin went completely white with terror. Instructor Bellix froze in the middle of the room. All 4 of his arms went stiff at his sides. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. His body would not obey him. The door burst open. Security Officer Lee Suho ran in, his hand reaching for the weapon at his belt. He was a trained soldier. He had faced danger many times, but when the growl hit him, he stopped like he had walked into a wall. His hand hovered over his weapon, shaking. For 3 long seconds, nothing moved. The room was frozen in terror. Except for one person, Park Yuna pushed herself off the wall where she had been standing. Her heart was beating fast. She could feel the growl pressing against her mind, trying to make her afraid. And she was afraid. Her body wanted to run. Her legs wanted to freeze. But she kept walking. Every step felt heavy. Every breath felt difficult. But she moved forward. Toward Vrek. Toward the source of the sound. The other aliens in the room watched with horror. To them, it looked like a small human woman walking calmly toward her own death. Vrek saw her coming. His growl grew louder. His eyes glowed brighter. His instincts were screaming at him. Threat. Danger. Make it stop. Make it afraid. But the human would not stop. Yuna reached Vrek. She stood directly in front of him, so close that she could feel the vibration of his growl in her chest. She looked down at his small, fierce face, his glowing eyes, his raised spines, his bared fangs, and she smiled. "Nice try," she said. The growl stopped. Vrek stared at her. His eyes slowly returned to their normal color. His spines lowered. His scales flattened. He looked confused, lost. No creature had ever done this before. No creature had ever walked toward him when he was displaying. No creature had ever smiled. The room was completely silent. But now, it was a different kind of silence. Not fear. Shock. Yuna crouched down so her eyes were level with Vrek's. She spoke softly. Only he could hear her words. "You're scared," she said. "I can tell. That's not a hunting growl. That's a, please don't hurt me growl. Am I right?" Vrek's lower lip trembled. For a moment, he looked very young, very small, very alone. "How did you know?" he whispered. "Because I know what fear looks like," Yuna said. "And I know what it feels like. We're not so different, you and me." She picked up the learning sphere from the floor. It felt warm in her hand. She held it out to him. "Want to try again?" she asked. Vrek looked at the sphere. He looked at her face. Slowly, carefully, he reached out and took it from her hand. His claws were retracted all the way. He was being so careful not to hurt her. Behind them, Instructor Bellix finally exhaled. The sound was loud in the quiet room. Tila, the small Fenari girl, had stopped shaking. She was watching Yuna and Vrek with wide eyes. She had never seen anything like this before. None of them had. Yuna stood up. She looked around the room at all the frozen faces. Then she looked back at Vrek. "It's okay," she said. "It's going to be okay." She was not sure if she was saying it to him or to herself. But in that moment, standing in a room full of aliens who had just watched her do the impossible, she believed it. Things were going to change. The news spread through the academy like fire through dry grass. Within 2 hours, everyone knew what had happened. A human had walked through a Kethrani threat display. A human had smiled at a growling predator cub and said, "Nice try." Some did not believe it. Some thought the reports were exaggerated. But the security footage was clear. It showed everything. And soon, everyone had watched it, at least twice. Yuna was called to High Overseer Morith's office before the day ended. When she arrived, she found that she was not alone. Ambassador Kim Do-hyun was already there, sitting in a chair designed for human bodies. He was a tall man, with gray hair at his temples, and a calm face that revealed nothing. "Instructor Park," he said. "Please sit down." Yuna sat. She expected to be in trouble. She had acted without permission. She had put herself in danger. She had possibly interfered with Academy protocols, but Morith did not seem angry. The Overseer's many eyes moved rapidly, studying Yuna from every angle. There was something in her expression that looked almost like excitement. "I want to show you something," Morith said. She waved one of her thin arms, and a holographic display appeared in the air. It showed the security footage from the classroom. But this version had additional information. Numbers and graphs floated next to Yuna's image, tracking her body's responses. "Your heart rate increased by 47%, Morith said. "Your adrenaline levels rose dramatically. Your skin showed the electrical patterns consistent with extreme fear. Your body had the exact response we expected. 1. Unreth. Number 10. I was afraid," Yuna admitted. "Very afraid." "Yes. And yet." Morith moved the footage forward. It showed Yuna walking toward Vrek. "You continued moving. Your fear response did not paralyze you." "Why?" Yuna thought carefully before answering. "I could see that he was scared. The growl was defensive, not aggressive. His body language showed fear, not hunting intent. He was trying to protect himself, not attack." Morith's eyes blinked in a wave pattern. "No other species can distinguish between Kethrani threat displays. To everyone else, the growl simply means danger. How did you see something different?" Ambassador Do-hyun leaned forward. "May I explain?" Morith gestured for him to continue. "On Earth," Do-hyun said, "humans lived alongside apex predators for hundreds of thousands of years. Lions, tigers, bears, wolves. Creatures that could kill us easily. We were not the strongest. We were not the fastest. We had no claws, no fangs, no armor. Then how did you survive?" Morith asked. "We watched. We learned. We understood." Do-hyun smiled slightly. "Humans developed the ability to read animal behavior. We learned to see the difference between a predator that was hunting and one that was simply resting. Between one that was aggressive and one that was afraid. This knowledge kept us alive. You evolved empathy," Morith said slowly. "As a survival mechanism. Yes. We learned to understand what other creatures were feeling. Not because we are kind, though we can be, but because understanding others helped us survive." Morith turned back to Yuna. "But understanding does not explain why you kept walking. Fear should have stopped your body," Do-hyun answered again. "Humans do not have a true freeze response. Most species, when faced with extreme fear, experience paralysis. But humans evolve differently. We experience fear, yes, intense fear, but we remain able to make decisions. Why? Because we were persistence predators. Our ancestors hunted by following prey for days without stopping. They ran and walked until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. To do this, they needed to keep moving even when they were tired, even when they were hurt, even when they were afraid. The ability to keep going, despite every reason to stop, became part of our biology." Morith was silent for a long moment. Her many eyes looked at Yuna with new understanding. "So humans feel fear," she said, "but they can choose what to do about it." "Yes," Yuna said. "That's exactly right." Before anyone could speak again, the door burst open. A massive figure filled the doorway. Scales gleaming, eyes glowing, claws extended. Torvak had arrived. Vrek's father was enormous. He stood well over 2 meters tall, and his body was covered in thick scales the color of dark copper. His eyes burned with orange light, and his voice was a deep rumble that made the furniture vibrate. "Where is the human who approached my son?" Ambassador Do-hyun rose slowly. He did not back away, but Yuna could see tension in his shoulders. Even for a human, standing before an angry Kethrani warrior required courage. "I am here," Yuna said. She stood up from her chair. Torvak's eyes focused on her. He was breathing heavily. His claws clicked against each other. For a moment, Yuna thought he might attack. His body language was aggressive, protective, dangerous. But then Morith stepped between them. "Watch the footage, Warrior Torvak. Watch what really happened." The holographic display played again. Torvak watched in silence as Yuna walked toward his growling son. He watched as she crouched down and spoke gently. He watched as Vrek's fear faded into confusion and then into something like hope. When the footage ended, Torvak's scales had flattened. His eyes had dimmed. The anger had left his body, replaced by something else. Something that looked almost like shame. "I sent him here," Torvak said quietly, "because he is not like other Kethrani. He is sensitive, gentle. He is frightened by his own threat displays. Among our people, this is considered weakness." "Is that what you believe?" Yuna asked. Torvak did not answer immediately. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "I do not know what I believe anymore. I thought others would teach him to be stronger. Instead, they fear him and avoid him. He is more alone than ever." Yuna took a step toward the massive warrior. Everyone in the room tensed, but she kept her voice calm. "Your son is not weak. He is just different. And different is not the same as broken." Torvak looked down at her. This small human who had walked through his son's growl without flinching. This strange creature from a young species that the galaxy did not yet understand. "Can you help him?" Torvak asked. The question was almost a whisper. "Can you teach him what you know?" Yuna nodded. "I would like to try. If you will allow it." Torvak was still for a long moment. Then, slowly, he tilted his head back and exposed his throat. Among Kethrani, this was the deepest gesture of trust. It meant, "I believe you will not harm me. I put myself in your hands." "Help my son," he said. "Please." Yuna felt the weight of his trust settle on her shoulders. It was heavy. It was frightening. But she did not look away. "I will," she promised. The private learning pod was small and quiet. Soft walls absorbed sound. Gentle lights could be adjusted to match any species' comfort needs. It was designed to be a safe space, a place where difficult conversations could happen. Yuna sat on one side of a low table. Vrek sat on the other. Between them was silence. For the first 3 sessions, Vrek did not speak. He communicated only with small gestures. A twitch of his spines meant discomfort. A flattening of his scales meant he was trying to be smaller. Sometimes his eyes would glow faintly orange, which meant his threat response was activating. When that happened, he would look away in shame. Yuna did not push him. She simply sat with him. Sometimes, she read quietly. Sometimes, she worked on reports. She let him know that she was there, that she was not afraid, and that she was willing to wait. On the 4th session, she brought something new. "I want to show you something from my home planet," she said. She placed a small device on the table. It projected moving images into the air above them. The images showed Earth, green forests, blue skies, wide grasslands, and animals. The first video showed a woman sitting with a tiger. The massive cat was lying down, its huge head resting near the woman's lap. The woman was stroking its fur gently. The tiger's eyes were half closed with contentment. Vrek leaned forward. His eyes went wide. The next video showed a man working with wolves. He walked among a pack of them. They jumped around him, played with him, accepted him as part of their group. Then came footage of humans caring for bears, for lions, for creatures with sharp teeth and deadly claws. In every video, the humans were calm, patient, gentle, and the predators responded to that gentleness. "They're not afraid?" Vrek asked. These were his first words to her. His voice was soft and rough, like stones rubbing together. They are afraid, Yuna said. Fear keeps them careful. Fear keeps them respectful. But fear does not stop them from caring. Vrek watched the images for a long time. His scales slowly shifted to brighter colors. His spines stayed flat. When the last video ended, he looked at Yuna with something new in his eyes. Why do they do it? He asked. Why do they go near dangerous animals? Because they want to understand them, Yuna said. Because they believe that even predators deserve kindness. Because they know that being dangerous does not mean being evil. Vrek looked down at his own claws. My people say that we are made to be feared. That fear is our gift to the galaxy. It keeps us safe. It keeps others away. Is that what you want? To keep others away? The young cub was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. No. I want friends. I want to play with other children. I want someone to sit next to me and not be afraid. His claws pressed against the table. But every time I try, I scare them. And I do not mean to. It just happens. Yuna nodded slowly. I believe you. Over the following weeks, Yuna taught Vrek the techniques that humans use to manage fear and stress. Deep breathing. Counting. Focusing on physical sensations. Recognizing when emotions were building before they exploded. Kathrani biology was different from human biology. Their threat response was triggered by different signals. But the basic principles were the same. Emotions started small. They grew. And if you caught them early enough, you could choose how to respond. Feel your scales, Yuna would say. Are they starting to lift? That's the first sign. When you feel that, take 3 slow breaths. Focus on the feeling of your feet on the ground. It was not easy. Vrek failed many times. His spines would rise. His eyes would glow. The growl would build in his chest. But each time, he tried again. And slowly, session by session, he got better. You're doing something no Kathrani has ever done, Yuna told him one day. You're learning to control your instincts. That takes incredible strength. Vrek's scales flushed with color. Embarrassment, but also pleasure. My father says warriors must master themselves before they can master others. Your father is wise. He does not think I am a warrior. Yuna tilted her head. What do you think you are? One? Vrek hesitated. This was not a question anyone had asked him before. Among his people, identity was assigned, not chosen. But here, in this small, safe room with this strange human, he felt like he could say things he had never said out loud. I like art, he admitted. I like making things. Colors and shapes. Music, too. My people do not have much music. But I heard some on the station. And I liked it very much. Then you're an artist, Yuna said simply. A Kathrani artist. Maybe the first one. Vrek stared at her. Is that allowed? Yuna laughed. It was a warm sound, full of kindness. You get to decide who you are. Not your people, not your father. You. Something changed in Vrek after that conversation. His scales became brighter. He walked taller. He started making small drawings during their sessions. Strange, beautiful patterns that Yuna had never seen before. When Yuna felt he was ready, she arranged a small meeting. Just 3 children. Vrek, and 2 students who had volunteered. One was Tila, the Fennery girl from the classroom incident. The other was a Morvani boy named Kel, who was quiet and thoughtful. The meeting was awkward at first. Tila's ears twitched nervously. Kel kept his many eyes pointed at the floor. Vrek's claws trembled under the table. But they talked. About classes. About food. About their families. Normal things that children everywhere talked about. Then Vrek accidentally triggered a small growl. It was short and soft, but everyone heard it. The room went tense. Vrek immediately lowered his head. I am sorry. I did not mean to. I was just nervous, because I want you to like me, and sometimes when I want something very much, it happens, and I am sorry. Please do not leave. It's okay, Tila said. Everyone looked at her. Her ears were still twitching, but she did not run. It's okay, she repeated. I get nervous too. I just do not make scary sounds when I am nervous. But that does not mean your nervousness is worse than mine. Kel made a sound that might have been laughter. I change colors when I am nervous. Everyone can see. It is very embarrassing. And suddenly they were all laughing. 3 children from 3 different species, laughing together about their shared awkwardness, their shared fears, their shared desire to be accepted. Vrek made his first friends that day. Weeks later, his father visited the academy. Torvak walked into Yuna's office and stopped short. On the wall hung a piece of artwork. It was abstract, made of swirling colors and sharp lines. It was beautiful. Vrek made that, Yuna said. Torvak was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was thick. I do not recognize my son anymore. Yuna felt her heart sink. But then she saw Torvak's face. He was not angry. He was not disappointed. He was crying. Kethrani could not produce tears like humans. But their scales changed color in waves of emotion. And right now, Torvak's scales were shifting through colors that Yuna had never seen before. Colors of joy and pride and relief. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for seeing him when no one else could. Yuna smiled. He was always there. He just needed someone to notice. The Galactic Council delegation arrived on a ship that was all sharp angles and dark metal. It landed in the Academy's main docking bay like a predator settling onto prey. From its doors emerged politicians, military leaders, and observers from a dozen different species. Among them were 3 Kethrani High Commanders. Yuna watched from a viewing platform as the delegation walked through the bay. The Kethrani commanders moved differently from Torvak. Their scales were decorated with marks of battle. Their eyes glowed constantly with low orange light. They looked at everything around them as if calculating how quickly they could destroy it. High Overseer Morith greeted the delegation personally. Ambassador Dohyun stood beside her, his face calm and professional. Security Officer Lee Suho was nearby with a team of guards, though everyone knew they would be useless if the Kethrani commanders decided to cause trouble. The delegation was there to evaluate the Academy's integration programs. They would decide whether to continue funding, expand the programs, or shut them down entirely. Everything Yuna had worked for depended on their judgment. By the second day of the visit, the Kethrani commanders had heard about Vrek. So it is true, said the largest commander, whose name was Vorath. His voice was like thunder rolling across mountains. A Kethrani cub has been domesticated by humans. Torvak stepped forward. His scales lifted in controlled anger. My son has not been domesticated. He has learned new skills. Vorath made a sound of contempt. Skills taught by a species that has been in the galaxy for barely a moment. What could they possibly teach us? We are the apex predators of the known universe. We do not need lessons from soft-skinned creatures who cannot even hunt without tools. The other commanders made sounds of agreement. Vorath turned his glowing eyes toward Morith. I wish to see this cub. I wish to see what the humans have done to him. There was no polite way to refuse. Morith arranged for a demonstration in the Academy's main assembly hall. Word spread quickly. And soon, the hall was filled with observers. Students, instructors, politicians, and guards all gathered to watch. Vrek stood in the center of the hall. His scales were bright and healthy, but Yuna could see the tension in his shoulders. He knew what was coming. Vorath walked a slow circle around the young cub. He looked at Vrek's artwork displayed on portable screens. He looked at the reports of Vrek's improved social connections. He made disapproving sounds at everything he saw. You have made friends, Vorath said. His tone made the word sound like an insult. You make pictures. You play games with prey animals. He leaned close to Vrek. Where is the warrior in you? Where is the predator? Vrek met his eyes. I am still Kethrani. I have not stopped being who I am. Great. Prove it. Vorath straightened up. Among our people, young warriors prove themselves through the dominance challenge. An elder unleashes their full threat display. The young one must stand their ground. If they cower or flee, they are proven weak. A murmur went through the crowd. Everyone knew what a full Kethrani threat display could do. It had never been unleashed on the academy before. Torvak stepped forward. This is not a warrior training facility. My son is not prepared for. Then he is weak. Vorath interrupted. And the humans have made him weaker. This is what happens when predators try to live among prey. They forget what they are. Yuna watched Vrek's face. She saw fear there, but she also saw determination. He was not going to run. He was going to stand and face this challenge. Even if it destroyed all his progress, she could not let him do it alone. I have a suggestion, Yuna said. Her voice carried across the silent hall. Everyone turned to look at her. If humans have weakened Vrek, then my presence should make no difference. Let me stand with him during the challenge. If he cowers or flees, you will have your proof. Click. Vorath looked at her with interest. The human who walked through a cub's growl wants to face a commander's display? Yes. You will be paralyzed. You will collapse. You will humiliate yourself and your species. Maybe. Yuna walked forward until she stood beside Vrek. Or maybe you will learn something new about humans. Vorath's scales lifted with amusement. Very well. Stand together. Fall together. The hall went completely quiet. Guards moved observers back to safer distances. Morith looked worried. Dohyun's face was blank, but his hands were clenched at his sides. Torvak's eyes were fixed on his son, his scales shifting through colors of fear and hope. Vorath walked to the far side of the hall. He rolled his massive shoulders. He flexed his claws. Then, he began to change. His scales lifted and spread, making him look twice his size. Bioluminescent patterns lit up across his body in pulsing waves. His eyes blazed like small suns. His mouth opened to reveal fangs as long as Yuna's hand. And then came the sound. It was not like Vrek's growl. That had been a defensive sound, born from fear. This was something else entirely. This was the sound of 1,000,000 years of evolution, compressed into a single moment. This was the promise of death-given voice. The sound hit Yuna like a physical force. Her vision narrowed. Her legs tried to fold beneath her. Every instinct in her body screamed at her to run, to hide, to do anything except stand here in front of this nightmare creature. Around the hall, observers collapsed. Guards dropped their weapons. Students screamed and fled. Even Morith stumbled backward, her many legs struggling to support her. But Yuna did not fall. She was afraid. More afraid than she had ever been in her life. She could feel tears running down her face. Her whole body was shaking. But she did not fall. She did not run. Beside her, Vrek took a breath. His scales were rippling. His spines were trying to lift. But he used his techniques. He focused on his feet. He counted his breaths. He chose not to be controlled by his fear. He stood firm. The display lasted for 30 seconds. It felt like 30 years. When it finally ended, Yuna's legs gave out. She dropped to her knees, gasping for air. But she had not run. She had stayed. Vrek was still standing. His claws were shaking. His scales were pale. But he had not cowered. He had not fled. The hall was silent, except for the sounds of people recovering from terror. Vorath stared at them. His expression had changed. The contempt was gone, replaced by something that might have been confusion, or the beginning of respect. You felt the fear, he said to Yuna. I saw it. Your body reacted exactly as I expected. Why did you not run? Yuna looked up at him. Her voice was rough when she spoke. Because he needed me to stay. That is what humans do. We stay. Vorath turned to Vrek. And you used techniques to control yourself. You chose not to react. Vrek lifted his head. When he spoke, his voice was clear and steady. I am not weak, because I do not want to make others afraid. I am strong, because I can choose. For a long moment, Vorath said nothing. Then he did something no one expected. He lowered his head slightly. Not a full bow. Not submission. But acknowledgement. Recognition. Perhaps, he said slowly. There is something here worth understanding. It was not acceptance. It was not approval. But it was a beginning. 3 months later, Yuna stood at the front of her classroom. The room was full of students from a dozen species. They sat in adaptive chairs designed for their different bodies. They talked and laughed and argued like children everywhere. In the front row, Vrek sat with his friends Tila and Kel. His scales were bright. His artwork decorated the walls. He raised his hand to answer questions like any eager student. The door opened, and a small figure walked in. Another Kethrani cub, younger than Vrek. Her scales were dull with stress. Her claws were trembling. She looked terrified. The classroom went quiet. Everyone remembered what had happened the last time a Kethrani cub came to the academy. Vrek stood up from his seat. He walked toward the new student, moving slowly so he would not frighten her. When he reached her, he crouched down to her eye level. I know you are scared, he said gently. I was scared too. But it gets better. I promise. He extended his hand toward her. It was a human gesture, one that Yuna had taught him. My name is Vrek. Want me to show you around? The young cub looked at his hand. She looked at his face. Then, slowly, she reached out and took it. Yuna watched from her desk. Outside the window, stars drifted past in the endless dark. Ships came and went. Species that had been strangers were learning to become neighbors. Change was slow. Change was hard. But change was happening, and it had started with a single word. Nice try.